All right, Bang Bang. Today is Tuesday, December 15th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Chief is here because it's Tuesday. And, Chief, this could be the last episode we ever do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's always the case, right? It could be the end of the world anytime.
It very much could be. So, if you see the title, if you saw the schedule that I posted Sunday night.
I liked that schedule.
You like that schedule?
I like knowing what's coming down the pike always, so letting me know what the Dog Walk episodes are starting Sunday got me kind of fired up. So I liked it a lot.
So make sure you're following the account at Dog Walk Barstool. Obviously, I'm at Eddie Barstool. He's at Barstool Chief. Just make sure you're following that because I'm going to try to post those Sunday nights from now on. But obviously, it's all pending on if we figure out what the hell we're doing for the week.
Well, you and I can always figure out what we're doing. Your extra guests and stuff might be tough.
Yes. It's always something with trying to schedule the interview for that Wednesday or Thursday. So I'm going to try and do a better job about that. And then obviously True Crime on Friday. So look out for that. So like I said, if you see the episode title, if you read that, you know today and tomorrow we're talking doomsday.
It is that time of year. I mean, I remember when, this is probably like 10 years ago, the History Channel, Discovery Channel used to do a billion of these types of shows and episodes about doomsday because the Mayan calendar was set to in 2012, December 21st, 2012, the whole world was supposed to end according to the Mayans. We're still here, so, Mayans got a lot of things right. Got that one wrong. Unless we're just misreading the calendar and it's this year. That could very well be the case. We're all about to die. So, but yeah, there's all kinds of scary end of the world type shit. And I think we talked about this briefly maybe last week was the inspiration for this. So here we are again to break down all the worst ways that humanity can end.
Hey, and we sat here and we're like, dude, now I don't really take, as far as the Mayan calendar and 2012 and all that shit, I don't take a ton of stock into that. Obviously, I'm not a doomer. Mm-hmm. I think that's what they call that, right?
Sure.
In some ways. But if there's a year for it to happen, it's the year of 2020.
It might be happening right now. Yeah. We just don't even know.
Exactly. So the way we're going to work through this is we're going to start with the natural ones.
Yep.
We covered Yellowstone a little bit last week. We're going to get deeper into it today as well as other ones. And then we're going to get into the man-made ones, the ones where we just kind of did this to ourselves.
Or could,
yes. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
So let's kick it off here. Which one are we leading off with? The natural disaster.
We will start with what we talked about a little bit last week, the Yellowstone caldera, it's in Yellowstone, appropriately named. It also, the entire land area also bleeds into Idaho, northwest Colorado, and it moves along this tectonic plate shift. So it originally, this is a long time ago, 16 million years would be in present day Washington State, eastern Washington State. And it just kind of the epicenter of it continually moves. And now it sits right in Yellowstone National Park. So if you think about it the Hawaiian Islands, you ever seen how those kind of form, or the Aleutian Islands off of Alaska? The reason those islands are there kind of in a line is because a volcano will shift underneath the Earth's crust and pop up a little, as the plate tectonic shift and these volcanoes erupt, it makes new ones. So the same thing can happen, but over land or under the land as well. And that's why the Yellowstone caldera is where it is. So it started off and the plates keep shifting and it ends up right in Yellowstone.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. I did not know that.
Didn't know that either. That was a new fact for me too. It's fucking big. That's another thing to know about. It's called a supervolcano for a reason. It's 35 miles across, east to west, and then 45 miles north to south. So you think of how big, if you're thinking of Mount St. Helens or these other volcanoes that we've seen in our lifetime where they explode, you're oh, it's on top of a mountain. Well, that's probably a mile wide. Okay, you're talking something that's 34 miles wide. You cannot see across it. It's that fucking big, and that's the mouth of the volcano itself. Is just this giant landmass. It's just all underground. So when you walk through, have you ever been to Yellowstone?
No.
Well, I know you went to Wyoming. I didn't know if you made it there.
No.
But they have, the geysers Old Faithful, and they have these hot springs and things like that, and that's all caused from this liquid hot magma that is all over the earth at all times, but there's weaker spots in the crust and the plate tectonics. And at Yellowstone, the lava, the magma comes dangerously close to the surface, which superheats the water and all that kind of stuff. And every clockwork, especially with Old Faithful, it sends it up into the sky because it superheats it and explodes. I don't know how often it happens, but it happens like on a regular schedule. And that's what is theoretically happening, but at a grander level with this Yellowstone caldera. It kind of explodes like clockwork. So it happened 2.1 million years ago. Then it happened again 1.3 million years ago. Then it happened again 630,000 years ago. And that would put us kind of on schedule for something to happen, maybe in the next 200,000 years, maybe fucking right now. Like, you just never know exactly, because that time frame does seem to be shortening over time. So like when I said the original one was 16 million years ago, it's like that keeps kind of shrinking down. Like, there was probably 16 million, then it was 12 million, then it was 8 million years. So it was like 4 million. And then the time between explosions and eruptions seemingly keeps shrinking. So we're not overdue. We're kind of due, if that makes sense, for this Yellowstone to explode.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's so fucking big.
So big.
That's where everyone's like, well, how could it reach here? How could it get this far? I think understanding the size of it in general helps that, right?
Fucking massive.
What did you say, 35 miles?
It's 34 miles across, east to west, and again, like roughly, and then 45 miles north-south. If you have your protractor out, you do the calculations on how big of a circle it is, but it's fucking big.
I mean, I just pulled it up. Like, for Chicago people, O'Hare to Navy Pier is 15.2 miles. So
yeah, okay.
Think about that. And like, of course, it takes long because of traffic and shit. But just the sheer distance, it's like there and back. It's even bigger than that.
It's double that, and it's just a volcano, like the mouth of a volcano.
It's huge.
It's huge. Okay, and the last time it erupted, which was that 640,000 years ago, like I said, it ejected 240 cubic miles of debris. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds like cubic miles. So it's like if you think of something like what, like that would go like into outer space, because think of if like the Mount Everest is 27,000 miles high, right?
Yeah.
So this is 240 cubic miles. So it'd be like, I don't know, 10 Mount St. Helens, like all stacked up on top of each other. And that's the amount of debris that would be blown. So like rocks, ash, trees, everything that would explode. That's how much debris it would cause just going up into the atmosphere.
I'm trying to look this up. I mean, the definition, it's just a unit of volume here. It's defined as the volume of a cube with sides of 1 mile in length. So
right. That's what it means. But if you close your eyes and think about what that type of explosion would mean, like you wouldn't be able to see any, like it would literally go into outer space. Like it would go to like the upper reaches of our atmosphere, all this shit, the debris and all of that. And that's what would kind of cause the problem. So if you're in 1,000 miles of this blast zone when the Yellowstone caldera goes off, good night. Like you're just completely fucked. You won't necessarily get like burned alive or hit with rocks or anything like that, but the real problem is the ash. And they said that the ash would be so thick within 1,000 miles that you would breathe it in. And this isn't like normal ash. It's like, particles of rock and lava. It's not like, oh, you're just sitting outside a campfire and you get ashes. It's like, no, it's like a different type of ash and it's so thick, and it would go, like I said, 1,000 miles. So that would include Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Salt Lake City, obviously Denver, all those areas. Just kind of, if it's not destroyed by the quakes associated with the blast itself, the ash in that area, and even it would drift it over towards us in Chicago, it would be so thick that when you breathe it in, it would form a cement mixture inside of your chest. Okay. Really? Yeah. So if you're in that 1,000-mile radius, so.
Fuck! I just figured it'd be like smoking, like being in a fire.
No, and it would get to you so quickly, so it would go off, and it's not like there's nothing you could do. Like it would reach you like very quickly. That ash, if you're in that 1,000-mile radius, that you're just fucking dead. Like there's nothing you can do, and like if you're in a place like Denver, or those cities I mentioned before, all the buildings and shit would collapse, because if you have a foot of ash, which is definitely going to happen, settle on a rooftop building, the building collapses. So it's a combination of the heat and the weight of the ash. It's not like snow. It's because it's fucking rock. So it's so much heavier that it will, if it sits on top of a building, it'll collapse like basically any building. So all those places that I just mentioned, demolished, gone.
That nice new Penn Casino with all the fucking
Yep. Buried.
the
Buried.
4 play signs and shit. Wow.
Get the insurance guys on the phone because that's gone. And if you're
Google HQ.
What's that?
I said Google HQ.
Gone.
See ya.
All of that shit is just gone. So even you're talking about like mountaintops, like everything is just going to be destroyed by this thing because it's the blast radius is that big, and then the ash goes, and the ash we'll get fucked up by the ash too here in Chicago, and the ash will really kind of go all over the world. So it might you might not die instantly from inhaling it like you would inside the blast zone if you're in the East Coast of the United States or Florida or something like that. Canada, other eastern parts of Canada, but you're going to have serious health issues. Like we talk about people being overloaded in hospitals now with corona. This would be a billion times worse than that, and you likely still die, but it's a slower death than if you just get like that instant cement mix in your lungs.
I mean, it's over.
Yeah, it's
what do we like? We would.
It's like
would
pneumonia.
there actually be a case there for people like to try and like fix this? I feel like
I feel like it's in our human nature to try. Right, but like
1,000%.
So we would have in that 1,000-mile radius, the projections show, like I said, like about a foot of ash on top of the buildings. New York City would have about an inch of ash on every building. So it'd be like that's still very prevalent. Think of an inch of snow, and like if you have an inch of snow, like and you're like that's not a problem, but it's a lot. It's a significant amount. So if you're breathing that in New York City, like you're gonna have a lot of problems too. But part of the reasons why they might live longer than people in the blast zone is because it would take longer to get there, so you might be able to have some sort of protection from those elements. But yeah, you're largely fucked if you live in the United States.
And I'll tell you what, maybe that's why fucking Bezos moved to DC. He might have some type of fucking shield for that. For
it might be why he's building a spaceship.
Yeah.
Like,
could be too.
I think because that's the real thing, because this is not just going to be limited to the United States and the East Coast. Like you will have dust plumes and things go all over the world, and it's going to have an impact to the point where I think we said this before, but in the last episode, where the ash goes up into the atmosphere, instantly causes global freezing. So the sunlight can't penetrate that ash; it's too thick, and as like the currents and the wind and stuff take it all over the world, it's reflecting the sunlight back up. You're going to have a 10-degree average drop in temperature all over the world, basically instantly. So you're talking massive crop failure. In addition to all those health problems, you're having this ash all in the waterways and stuff. So like that's going to have, you won't be able to farm. You won't be like your land will just be like covered in it. Like you're going to have to till it. Like it's just everything is good. You're going to have worldwide famine if you survive. So like you're going to be in some big trouble regardless. So if you're in that, you ever seen Mount Vesuvius?
No.
So this is a real, if you Google it, I would ask people who listen to Google it. It's this place, it's a mountain in Italy. So this is like Roman Empire times, that they have all kinds of volcanoes over there in the Mediterranean where it blows up and people are basically just like frozen solid, but covered with this molten rock. So you have like statues of like people that they're just forever stuck in that way. And I feel like that's what the blast zone would look like, and then everyone else would just be fucked.
Yeah, what do you mean? Just like
they're just frozen. Like if you're drinking a cup of water and that volcano goes off and the dust comes out, like you've turned into a rock. Like you're a rock now. And I feel like if you're inside that blast zone, that 1,000 miles, you end up looking a lot like that. Or even if you're closer, maybe 100 miles. Are you looking at it?
Yeah.
Are you seeing these people? These statue people?
No, wait. People, this is actually a thing? Like people are frozen here?
Yes, dude. Yes.
No,
yeah, absolutely.
No.
Yes.
I refuse to believe that.
That's
right.
Like you can go see them.
Mount Vesuvius. Holy shit, people are.
Yeah.
They're like laying and shit.
Right. And those aren't like, those are dead people underneath
what?
there. Yeah, because they were just, it happened like that. It's like vulcanized glass and ash. Like that's what happens to you.
Dude.
So that's what happens inside the blast zone. And that's like not, like it's a big volcano. It's not anything near like
what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
These are real people?
Yes. And that was like 1,000 years ago or something, or more than that. 2,000 years ago.
Can people go here, or is this like, hey, leave them alone?
No, I think you can go to Mount Vesuvius, and that happened like across like a waterway, and the ash just kind of came over the water and just enveloped the entire population. They're just fucking dead, fire stuck like rocks forever.
Dude, you can see this guy's teeth.
Yes, it's insane. It's insane.
This is worse than these people are doing these fucking funerals and they're like sitting someone in a chair watching the fucking Steelers game. It is worse than that. It's like, hey, let's go visit this guy. Yeah, like we see his wallet. We think it's his uncle.
I've seen one where a guy is like holding a cup and he like never even drops the cup because the thing just instantly burned him and then like turned him into char. Frozen as a rock, as a volcanic rock artifact, basically forever.
Dude,
fucking crazy, right?
I need an ad read to fucking take a break here. Listen. This is Italy.
This is Italy, yeah.
All right, get some Italian meats at JP Graziano's. Yeah. Oh my gosh,
your last meal on earth should be JP Graziano. So if this is scaring you, you better get your fix in now because this could happen at any time.
Get the catering tray.
Yeah, go nuts.
Why settle for your guys? Get the sub tray. Get the antipasti. Get the dessert tray too. Get it all. Mm-hmm. I mean, if this is gonna happen, this is possible.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And you know what else? I'd love if I'm gonna die and I'm gonna be immortalized like that forever. I want to be taking a bite of a Mr. G as it happens. Yeah, exactly. What was Ryan like? I don't know. He just ate a lot of sandwiches.
Exactly. So get your order ins. I don't know how you're spending your Christmas, but jpgraziano.com. They'll be there for you. Go pick it up next week. Normal hours are going to be open only till 2:00 on Christmas Eve. Close on Christmas, closes on the 26th, the day after. So make sure you get your order ins now. If you pre-order, jpgraziano.com. Get your meats, get your cheeses. It could be your last meal, so make sure you get that in. All right. Let's continue. I think I'm recovered. I can't. What should I have known this?
I don't know if it's like I like this kind of stuff, so I knew it. I don't know if it's super common knowledge, Mount Vesuvius. I feel like people have heard of it, but maybe haven't seen the images.
That's a must Google for you folks listening.
Yeah, maybe I'll blog it for tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. That'd be great.
All right, with that, maybe we should move on to asteroid impacts.
Yeah, I mean, trust me.
You're like stunned by this.
Yeah, I mean, Yellowstone, like, dude, there were so many facts you just spit at me that were unbelievable. From the freeze, being at the sun can't protrude it, from the foot of ash going to just knock down buildings, to it fucking cement mixing our lungs. Like, yeah. It hits you every which way.
Yeah, and if you think about like those images of 9/11, okay? So when the buildings first collapse and there's just those giant dust plumes that just envelop the entire city, well, now imagine that's happening in San Francisco, but it's like the ash is causing more ash. So now it's like you have the initial blast ash, and then you have these cities that are just flattened and collapsing, and that they're throwing even all of their cement ash like back into the mix. So it's just like, it's not just the initial, it's going to have these secondary impacts that's just going to fuck up everything.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, yeah. That was... Yellowstone something. I don't want to fuck with that.
No.
Keep that.
That's one of those things where it's like, if Yellowstone blows, where do I want to be? I want to be in Yellowstone, because just take me quick. Let me, Vesuvius me like instantly.
You'd want to be a Vesuvio?
I don't know. I think that's better than being in New York or someplace on the East Coast and you're just like hacking up a glass cement lung until you die. That sounds pretty terrible. So yeah. Turn me into Vesuvius with my JP Graziano sandwich in hand.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. So we're staying natural.
Yeah. So the other one that people always talk about, because we had extinction events that we know about, were asteroid impacts. So obviously the asteroid came down and smoked the dinosaurs. We talked about that one. I don't know if actually we've done a dog walk episode about that. No. So that was I think 40 million years ago or something like that. And then we did talk about the Pleistocene era, where we had all those sweet animals in North America, the woolly mammoth.
Love that episode.
Okay,
that was a great episode.
Saber-toothed tigers and all that kind of stuff.
Short-faced bear.
Short-faced bear, yeah, the meanest animal that ever was. Oh, yeah. So there was an asteroid impact that hit in Greenland and caused all this, like during the Ice Age. So it might have been like multiple asteroids. So, and they exploded and they melted all of this, all these glaciers and ice sheets that covered most of North America and caused this widespread, instantaneous flooding, most dramatically in North America, they think. Again, this is about 12,000 years ago, but really flooding all over the world. And they think that that's where most of the flood myths in ancient cultures, whether it be in India, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is one of the earliest human like writings ever found. And then same thing with like Noah's Ark, where and then the story of Atlantis and all of these things all have this giant flood myth. And they think it was because all of these glaciers were basically evaporated all at once. So you talk about now with like global sea levels rising from slow glacial meltage. Now imagine you're having dramatic glacial meltage all at once, all over the world. And that was caused by an asteroid that hit. Again, they've just recently in the last maybe 4 or 5 years found like the potential crater where they think it actually hit, but that caused all this flooding. And that's something that, we're always in danger of.
Now, this is going to be dumb again.
Okay.
But,
this is the place for it.
I'm the guy who asks the dumb questions around here. So you're telling me it made it melt faster? To me, it just sounds like it'd be a big-ass cannonball, and it was like almost a tidal wave everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's both. So if it hits that, you're going to have that. So initially, right? So that asteroid comes down, hits the ice sheet, and it's going to melt like where it hits and cause this massive flooding that's going to trigger more massive flooding. And that's what really hit North America was the instant flooding. Okay. But you're also going to have that cannonball effect where you're going to have a cannonball that causes tsunamis. Maybe that's what took out Atlantis. And then because it hit over water or ice over water, you had all this massive meltage. That's where you think about like the Noah's Ark story, perhaps, where you had 40 days in a row of rain. So if it's raining for 40 days in a row, that's probably because so much moisture was thrown up and vaporized from the ice into the atmosphere. It has to come back down eventually. Wow. But there's so much up there that it's just perpetual hurricane type rains forever, like for 40 days or however long the myths say. And they think that that's where like a lot of those, it's weird that there's so many flood myths all over the world, all at about the same time. Like there must have been something that happened.
Yeah, and they all kind of tie in too. So,
yeah,
for sure.
But if you want to go back, I mean, if you want to talk about like the sizes of different asteroids and what they would do, if you had an asteroid the size of a car, like a sedan coming down, it will probably explode in the atmosphere. It'll, depending on how high up or down it actually explodes, you're going to have damage on Earth if it's the size of a car. Like you're going to have like windows of buildings will break from like that boom. It'll burn so bright and so hot that even if it never hits the Earth, you're still going to be able to, like, it can actually cause a sunburn. Like if you're close enough to it.
Wow. Okay.
And there's a great example of this in Siberia. It happened like 1911 or something like that, where an asteroid was coming down, and I'm going to find the name of it right now. It just popped in my head. I should have looked it up before. An asteroid comes down, explodes before it hits the Earth, and just absolutely wipes out the entire forest. So like these forests, you have these big, huge pine trees, and then the asteroid hits and they like just fall over. So you have like, they're just shattered at the base for like 1,000 miles.
Is that the Tunguska event?
I believe that is the name. Yeah.
I just Googled it.
So it's like another thing worth
checking out.
And it was 1908. And you see, and there are like images where people are like, what the fuck happened here? Like not that many people, if any, lived in that part of the world, but the entire forest is just obliterated and like it just left in shards. And you see like this huge impact crater where still nothing to this day is in a circle has grown, but the other trees and stuff have recovered. But that's kind of crazy. And that was just from a smaller one.
That's a car one or like bigger than that?
That's a car size one.
Okay, so that's a car size one.
Yeah. If it's the size of a house, like that, picture that, like whatever your standard American size house is, it would be the force of a Hiroshima nuclear bomb. So you'd have it come down and make a radius that's 1.5 miles wide, and everything in that area would be obliterated. You'd have some debris and things like that, and fires and dust, similar things thrown up into the atmosphere. But in terms of like worldwide issues, not that much. Okay. So like you'd have damage, but the damage would be mostly isolated and like the Earth would recover. If you have one that's the size of a 20-story building, so like a good sized building in Chicago or any other major city, and that hits, that'll take out Paris. Like a city the size of Paris, it'll be gone. You're going to start to have some of these same things where you're a lot of debris kicked up into the atmosphere, vegetation, all that kind of stuff in the surrounding area will be damaged like irreparably, probably for like 50, 100 years. And that's just, like I said, from one the size of a building. If you have one the size of a football field, that's when you start to have like global impact. So you're going to have earthquakes felt 1,000 miles away. You're going to have it'll take a city as big as New York in terms of land mass, gone, like just obliterated completely, turned to dust in an instant. If it's a half-mile wide, you're going to have a thing come down and like have a crater the size of in a damage zone like the size of the state of Virginia. So like think of how big Virginia is. It goes all the way in. Everything that is around that area, it will look like that forest in Russia where like the trees are just completely burned out, huge crater. And that's when you start to really have like global climate change problems from that. Like that'll eject enough dust to like cause the earth to cool. And if you have a Mount Everest sized asteroid, which is about the size they think that killed the dinosaurs, and it created this huge crater over by the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Again, these are what they think. That just destroys everything. That sets Earth back, millions of years, because we were like little monkey shrew things, like we talked about the stoned ape theory last week. Dinosaurs ruled the earth. Dinosaurs completely gone. Vegetation completely gone. The earth goes into like an ice age, essentially. Global temperatures drop, and the whole world just kind of has to hit reset. They think they lost like 95 or 98% of all species on earth were gone, and then it just started like this thing all over again, like this evolutionary process, and that's what kind of paved the way for mammals to really rule the world, because if they had these giant dinosaurs, they would just pick them off forever. And then when all the giant dinosaurs were gone, that's when mammals really started to take over. And they say that dinosaurs like a T-Rex, like they evolved out of that, like they're still in existence, but they think they're probably like a chicken. They think a chicken used to be like a descendant of T-Rexes. Yeah, because chickens, and they think that most dinosaurs had actual feathers.
I saw that. That's like a recent finding, right?
Yeah, that's what people think now. So not so much lizards and things like that and reptiles. They're probably more like these just nasty fucking birds.
Jesus, dude.
Which not all could fly, but they had like the feathers, and now it's like, the T-Rex is now a fucking chicken.
Now, do you think? Now, is it possible that if that trajectory kept going, rather than the mammals taking over, like would that have transformed into a human life form of some sort?
Probably not. I think who knows? But we were so far away from becoming what humans are today at that point that if human life forms had existed, we probably wouldn't be here now. Like if an asteroid like that comes and hits us again, everybody's dead. Like, make no bones about it. Maybe a few survive for a while, but like your electrical grid's gone, your heating, you want to talk about internet's gone, all that shit is gone. Everything that makes our life so easy, food, like you're gonna have to hunt and kill your own food, but guess what? There's none because they all got killed by the fucking asteroid. Like you might have pockets of people that survive, but most of the people are just gonna be dead.
But then they'd be counting on us to restart human civilization though, right?
Good luck to them. Count me as the people who are just like, just kill me now.
Man.
Yeah. And those are like the two, I would say, maybe likeliest global catastrophes. I mean, I don't think that they're likely, at least in our lifetimes. They're statistically not likely in our lifetimes, but they're plausible.
That's crazy, man.
And then the thing that would probably kill us, the most plausible thing, would be an all-out nuclear war. Like that would be the thing that would end the planet, and that would be our man-made versions of catastrophes.
That's where we're shifting. Mm-hmm. So this is more like, hey, we did this to ourselves.
Yeah. Like, better be fucking careful, because someone just has to press a button and then everybody dies.
Yeah.
As opposed to like some rock from space just accidentally hitting us.
Yeah.
So
the size thing is so fascinating.
Yeah. The impacts of it from each level. Yeah.
Which was the one that almost hit us? Like the one like just passes by?
They say they skim by all the time. Like there was one, I think within the last year or two, that was close enough to pass in between the moon and the earth. Like that level. So
do you remember how big it was by chance?
I mean, big enough that it made the news. Like if it was the size of a basketball, nobody gives a shit. So they think that that's like what shooting stars are, or they know that's what shooting stars are, or just these asteroids that are small that hit our atmosphere and burn up. So like they're not like these giant ones. So if you see these shooting stars, that's probably what that is. So I don't know how big that is. It might have just been a headline thing, but yeah, let's say it's the size of let's just for experiment say it was the 20-story building one, which would do some serious fucking damage.
All right, let's move it on to
the nukes,
to the human ones. Yes,
to the human ones. I mean, nukes are the only thing that we can do that are on that scale. Yeah. So the only nukes ever used in a war, of course, were Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan, 1945. Some of the things about those is that the heat and the light from a nuclear blast happens several seconds before you actually feel the impact. So if you are looking at it, and if it's night or you're within a 13-mile radius, you're going to have what's called flash blindness. So this bomb's going to go off. You're going to look at it, go instantly blind, and be like, what the fuck? And then like 6 seconds later, you're absolutely smoked by the force of the blast. But you're blind for like a terrifying 5-6 seconds as like the explosion is reaching you. So number one, so that I don't know why that hit me so weird, but like that thought of just being blind and not knowing what's coming, and then you get demolished, not great.
Someone think that would almost be better though.
I don't want to be blind.
Can't see it, you know. It's like you fucking put the blindfold
over me. But think like you're shitting your pants, shot. Like you're. I don't know. I feel like I don't ever want to be blind. So I feel like that startled me a little bit.
I completely understand, but I guess some people would find comfort in the fact, like, all right, just do what you got to do, just
just lay down and die.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone inside, and again, this just goes back to like those old school nukes that were not that big by today's standards. Everyone within a 5-mile radius gets a 3rd-degree burn. Okay, so if you have 3rd-degree burns that cover, I think it's like 25% of your body, that's fatal. Like you're fucked. Everybody 7 miles, so it's just 2-mile difference. You still get a 1st-degree burn, so you're in a ton of pain. And then they say at the center of the Hiroshima bomb, again, so this is way back. Nukes are way more powerful now. The estimated temperature at the explosion point was 300,000 degrees Celsius. So anything that's near there, like that's I think it's like 10 times hotter than what they use to actually cremate bodies. So you're just instantly blown, like you're just melted. Like you're like, don't worry about going blind for 6 seconds. If you're near there, you're just melted into oblivion.
House of wax.
Yeah. Less than that, like you're gone. And it's like it's so hot that it's, let's say you're standing against a wall when the blast comes, and this is like a thing, like you can see it in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. If you're standing against a wall and the blast comes, it'll leave like your shadow against the wall, so it'll be like a black outline where like your person are gone, but there is this imprint of where you were last standing.
Wow, so it's almost like a reverse of the Vesuvio.
Yes, it's a good way to think about it. Yeah. But like all organic material instantly just incinerated, but because you were standing there, it prevented like direct radiation against that, let's just say a cement wall. So it's going to be the color will be slightly different, and you like, so your imprint, like your shadow will be there, but nothing else.
Yeah, a bunch of like police outlines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like police outlines up against the wall. It's crazy.
Damn.
And then if somehow you survive, like you're outside of the initial blast zone, you're going to have to face hurricane force winds. So 158 miles per hour from a 1 megaton bomb. So 1 megaton, like now, like the biggest bombs ever built were 50 megatons. So a 1 megaton bomb causes wind speeds of 158 miles an hour inside of a 4-mile radius, so you can feel that from that far away, and that's just like the lowly, like the baby ones. So you're gonna have these so if you survive, now you're gonna have to deal with like a fucking fence or a building or something, just coming right at your head. Like you're probably just gonna get killed from debris going 150 miles an hour. Not great. And the largest one ever detonated, like I said, was at 50 ton. It was called the Tsar Bomba. Russia dropped it on this remote island off their north coast, and the impact was so powerful that it like broke windows and shit in Sweden, like hundreds of miles away.
Wow.
Yeah, so don't fuck with that.
Was there a big ramification from that? Do you know, like with Sweden, like what the fuck?
Yeah, I think everyone was like, "What the fuck?" Like, and they were like, "We're doing a nuclear test. Like, just a big fucking bomb. Like, you're fine. Like, everybody's fine, but it's a big fucking bomb."
And sorry, you might have said this, but what was the Hiroshima? What was that one?
I believe that was 1 megaton or less.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was the first nuclear bomb ever used. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end, that's how we ended World War II. So those were like the first iteration, and as science got better around this nuclear technology, and the Cold War is ramping up, they kept making them bigger and bigger and bigger. So,
damn,
crazy. And then again, there's just going to be you're going to have all this sorts of problems if you're going to have if you're going to have like a real Cold War situation where everyone's just shooting their bombs off at once. It would take 100 warheads with these smaller nuclear arms to cause massive climate change. So they think that the Earth's temperature could drop by 9%, by 9 degrees, and a combination of the Earth temperature dropping along with all of the radiation and things. I think 2 billion people would probably starve to death. So if you survive the blast, then 25% of the population, whoever lived through the nuclear war, is just going to starve to death. So it's like a massive problem similar to the
How is that?
Because it would contaminate the water. It'd contaminate the fields. You'd have radiation everywhere. Like you just wouldn't
fuck up the crops and
fuck
shit?
up the crops. You'd eat the crops and be fucking poisonous.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So like
because everything's just fucking
right. Everything's just impacted. And I mean, they talked about this in the show Chernobyl. And Tom, if you can kind of cue up like what this does to the human body, even if you're just impacted by the radiation, how that actually physically impacts you over a course of like 30 days. So if you survive the initial blast or whatever, you're not out of the woods.
Yeah.
So
what will happen to our boys?
The divers.
The divers, the firefighters, the men in the control room. What does the radiation do to them precisely?
Oh, the level some of them were exposed. Ionizing radiation tears the cellular structure apart. The skin blisters, turns red, then black. This is followed by a latency period. The immediate effects subside. The patient appears to be recovering. Healthy even, but they aren't. This usually only lasts for a day or two. And the cellular damage begins to manifest. The bone marrow dies. The immune system fails. The organs and soft tissue begin to decompose. The arteries and veins spill open like sieves, to the point where you can't even administer morphine for the pain, which is unimaginable. Within 3 days to 3 weeks, you're dead.
Fuck that.
Scariest situation imaginable. So like that, the thing where of that clip where he's like, your arteries just start to fall apart to the point that you can't even give people painkillers because there's no mechanism to even deliver a painkiller. That's fucking scary. I've heard another analogy where, you can't see it, right? It's invisible, it's microscopic, but they fly through your body, like in one side, out the other, like little bullets that you can't feel or see, and you basically just die from the inside out, painfully and slowly. And that's what nuclear radiation does to you. And if you survive that stretch, like that 30-day stretch where you just have radiation going through you, it's going to be so toxic to your body that you're just going to get cancer and die within a couple of years anyway. So there's just no surviving the radiation. And that's why, like, when people talk about, nuclear war, how terrible would it be? It's because, yeah, it really fucking is, because there's no escaping it. And same type of thing. Like, if you survive initially, you're going to die, but it's going to be like this slower, more painful death. And that show Chernobyl really shows like how awful it looks.
Now, did they say you would suffer with that for 3 weeks, or it would take 3 weeks for it to happen for some people?
He said that you would, like, if you have this like massive exposure to it, that you're going to be very sick like right away, and then you'll start to recover and maybe even seem like, hey, like I'm getting better for like 3 days. And then within a month because you've had just this. You're just gonna it's just gonna eat away at you, and your body's just gonna fall apart, and you'll die.
Damn.
So
that's torture.
Yeah.
You're just living through that.
Yeah, and if you look up images of that from like Hiroshima or from people who had big time exposure at Chernobyl or Japan or these other places, Japan when they had the nuclear meltdown a few years ago with the tsunami and all that, it's really fucking bad.
No, why would the temperature drop? Because I understand with with the volcano because it would block the sun, but why would
same thing?
Oh, okay,
so yeah, you're gonna have so much debris. Go if you're going to do 100 warheads, which is not that many, but that's going to cause so much debris and fallout and things that it's going to be the same sort of situation as these other catastrophes where there's so much debris in the upper atmosphere that the sunlight will just reflect off of it and bounce back out.
Gotcha. Because to me, I'm like, oh, fucking explosion. I think it's gonna be hot. I think that would raise temps.
I mean, initially it's 300,000 degrees at the site of the blast, but after like the dust settles and gets kicked up, then that's when like the we're talking like maybe a month or two later.
Okay.
That's when like the effects on the global climate would start to be felt.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, that's fucked.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And we almost did this to ourselves twice. We were like at the brink of all-out nuclear war 2 times during the Cold War. The more famous one I think is the Cuban Missile Crisis. Have you heard of that?
I believe we've covered a bunch of stuff with Cuba.
Yeah, so Cuban Missile Crisis, October 1962. Basically, the Soviet Union put nuclear warheads and ballistic missiles into Cuba, so 90 miles from Miami, and they had long-range missiles that would be able to hit everywhere in the United States with the exception of like Seattle. And so that was like an overt threat to the United States where Russia was having the ability to have a first strike policy and just basically destroy us and kill us, and it's all she wrote. So then we were going to it was going to set off this like chain of events. So it's like, okay, they're building these things. We know they're building these things. We can go in there and invade and take them out. Okay, well, if that happens, then Soviets are going to march on Berlin. So Berlin at that time, you had East and West Germany after World War II. Berlin was a city that was totally within the border of East Germany, which was communist, but they had a line down the middle because it was the former capital. So they had like West Berlin belonged to the Allies, and East Berlin belonged to the Soviets. So they literally had a wall to prevent people from leaving communism to capitalism in the West. But it was part of NATO. So if the Russians invaded Berlin, West Berlin, which is literally just right across the street from them, then we would have to retaliate, and then there'd be no stopping this chain of, well, you did this, then we did this, and we counter with this, and then the only place it can go to is all-out nuclear war. And so like it would, if we attack something and they shoot down our plane, then we we attack them somewhere else, then they do Berlin, then we come over the top with our missiles, then they hit us with their missiles, and it's just good night.
Damn, so that wall was a pretty big fucking deal.
The wall was a big deal, and then the Kennedys really sort of figured out a way, whereas like we had missiles in Turkey that we agreed with the Soviets kind of like under the table, being like, hey, you guys withdraw from Cuba right fucking now, and in 6 months we will remove our missiles from Turkey. So it's like almost like a trade, because we could hit Moscow and all those places with our missiles in Turkey, but it's like you can't tell people that we're removing those missiles in Turkey because we made this deal. And so that was like kind of the secret negotiation going on, and then eventually Russia pulled out of Cuba.
So it's like a classic standoff. Drop the gun.
Exactly.
Drop the gun.
Right. No, you drop it. We drop it. Okay, we'll both drop at the same time. Yeah.
Hey, let's take a quick break here, Chief, and let's talk about JP Graziano. So we said yesterday, last meal.
The Mr. G.
You'd go Mr. G?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, that's his specialty. It's my favorite. Like your last meal, you want to just trust in the Lord and trust in the people who do their best. Jim's the best. Like that, you can't find a better sandwich than that. That's what I'm going out with.
That's a good way. You could get that in a catering tray, people.
Whew.
It's there for you, okay? So get that. Say, hey, Jim, I want the Mr. G. Maybe, there's going to be only 10 of us this year. Maybe it'll be smaller. Maybe we could split it up even smaller, and I could go drop some off. They'll be able to do that. Go to jpgraziano.com to put your pre-order in. Like I said, next week, they're going to be normal hours, except Christmas Eve. They will be closing at 2, and then they'll be closed on Christmas and the day after.
You know what I've already decided about the catering trays? That's what I'm doing for the Super Bowl.
There you go.
A few people over, maybe for the Notre Dame playoff game. Like, you don't want to worry about like making a ton of food. Let the professionals handle that. Get that catering tray. Everyone's going to be satisfied. It's the best.
Yep, there you go. And then the week after that, same thing. Normal hours until Wednesday. And then New Year's Eve on Thursday. They're going to close at 2. And then they'll be closing January 1st through the 18th. So make sure you get your JP fix in before that. They're going to be closed the 1st through the 18th of next year. And then they do have some muffalata and jardinera available. The mild they're a little short on. So, hey, if you want some hot, you want some mild, go to tastefulchicago.com. They'll have that there for you. jpgraziano.com, tastefulchicago.com. Go do it. All right, Chief, let's get back into part 2.
Okay. And then the scarier one, at least it's scarier to me, happened in 1983. And this is like during Reagan's first term. And Reagan was a hardliner against communism. He hated the Soviets. We had kind of gone through a cooling period of sorts in the 70s with Nixon and Ford and Jimmy Carter, where we're trying to like have just better relations. And Reagan thought that the Soviets were just like taking advantage of us. And he was like, fuck that. Like, we're just going to end this thing once and for all. So he started putting like these economic sanctions. Like, Russia would always historically like have problems where they wouldn't be able to grow enough food to feed their people. So we would give them wheat. Like, okay, we'll give you guys wheat. Why don't you, reduce your military, whatever. And they would always just make these trades. And then the Soviets would like renege on their trades. So it's like, okay. So now like we're getting to the point where Reagan's like, no, we're not doing that. So he goes out there and he gives these speeches calling them an evil empire. And then he doesn't do these deals where, for the wheat. And like we had been strategically like lowering the amount of nukes in our arsenal, and Reagan comes in and puts a ton of money into conventional weapons like new Navy, new airplanes, new everything, and then more nuclear bombs. He also developed this thing called the Strategic Defense Initiative, which the common name for it was Star Wars, where it's like, hey, like we have better technology than the Russians with like computers, and that was like the start of the microchip. So the Russians would launch their missiles, and then supposedly we had a satellite system that would just blast them out of the air. So it's like, you guys can never touch us. And so the Soviets were like, fuck, like we're in big trouble. Like we're hurting economically. We can't beat them militarily. We can't catch up to their technology. So they were like feeling this incredible pressure to like maybe do something. They shot down a Korean airliner around that same time prior to this event in 1983, killed 269 passengers, 60 of which were Americans. So now you're talking like this is the highest tension during the Cold War since the Cuban Missile Crisis. So 20 years go by. It's been relatively, okay between us and the Soviet Union. And then on September 26, 1983, the Soviets had their own like radar detection system for our nuclear weapons, and they had a glitch in their computer. So they had this like a false alarm saying the United States had launched a nuclear warhead. So this guy gets on the phone. This guy's named Stanislav Petrov, and he's the head of this center that's in charge of tracking nuclear launches from the United States. And they had 30 levels of like checks to make sure it was real, and all 29 of the 30 checked off. Like, yeah, this is fucking real. And then they had like follow-up missiles behind it. So they thought 5 nukes were coming from the United States to Russia. So now and from the time you get the warning to the time of impact, you only have 28 minutes. So you got to be fast on your feet, and you have all these steps being like, yep, real. The only one that wasn't real, or the only box that wasn't checked was that there was no visual confirmation. So if you had these satellite images that you could, I guess, get back relatively quickly, that there should be like exhaust or like rocket plumes. Like when you send a rocket, there's like all this smoke.
Yeah.
So they didn't see any of that. But it was like, there could be cloud cover, there could be this, there could be that. Like, what do we do? So that guy's job was he can't just press a button and launch nukes back, but he would have to go to the chain of command, like one guy higher than him. And those people would, be like, holy fuck, like, the United States is really trying to end this thing once and for all, like Reagan was saying. They're doing it with nukes. We better launch ours back. So this guy Petrov was like, knowing the consequences, that if he told his bosses that the Americans had launched 5 nuclear warheads on us, he knew that his bosses, who were kind of hungry for war anyways, everybody at that time was, very tense, that he was like, that they would launch. So it would be actually, because of a computer glitch, it would be the Soviets launching first, and then we would have retaliated. And it would have been all-out nuclear war, all because of a fucking computer glitch. And this guy just, like, gut instinct was like, I think something's wrong with the computer. And didn't do anything, and that saved the world.
Oh my God.
Isn't that fucking insane? Stanislav Petrov. He died in 2017. But that is like a real story, that we were one guy's decision away from all-out nuclear war in 1983.
That's fucking insane.
Right? That's crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
Damn, he was just like, there's no way they'd do that.
He was just like,
obviously, I know what you said. The last box, we can't see it, but then if you can't see it,
but he got 29 of the 30 things being like that. That to me is like, I don't know what I would do in that, but I guess like I read a quote of his this morning that he was like, he's like, if I was wrong, if I went to them and said, like, if I went to my boss and was like, hey, they launched these 5 nukes, like, they trusted him so much because he's the guy that has to go through all these checklists. So if they're like, hey, this guy Stanislav says, like, he went through, like, that's his job to know if these things are coming. He says they're coming, then the Russians absolutely would have launched back. And then we would have, in response, launched actual warheads. And that would have been, good night, Irene. Like, everybody's dead. And he was just like, I can't do it, knowing the repercussions. And he's like, if those American 5 missiles coming to us are real, we're all dead anyways. So he's like, I'm not gonna like accidentally trigger an all-out nuclear war. Like, I'll wait to see what happens.
Fucking Stanislav.
Fucking Stanislav. Ice in his veins.
Who wants that job?
No,
I'm happy he had it.
Yeah, right guy, right time. Because if that was somebody else, or he didn't have a nice night's sleep, like, who knows? Like, we're not sitting here.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
It's like the craziest story that nobody knows about. So this was going to happen, and we'd all be sitting there, like, living through that clip, like what we heard from Chernobyl, just everyone just radiation pouring through their bodies, starving to death, all because there's a bug in the computer.
Good Lord, dude. Yeah. Now, but do we have the blockers? Like, is that real? Like, could Reagan have blocked it? Like, how did...
I don't know how, like, if you look up, they would do, like, these weird commercials for it, and like, if you look like an old video game where it's like everything's like boxes and they shoot lasers and stuff, like, that's what the commercial was. So I don't know, like, how real it was or if it was just bullshit. But yeah, I think we do have, like, missile defense systems. Israel has, like, a great one called the Iron Dome, where... because the Palestinians historically have always shot these rockets over from like the Gaza Strip into Israel, and Israel is just like, well, we have this fucking dome here, like, it just blows all your rockets out of the sky. So, like, there are, like, actual defense systems, but even if, like, you blow up, if you blow up a nuke over in space or over water or whatever, like, there's still going to be nuclear fallout that comes down. Like, it's still a big fucking problem. So I think, yes, we do have capabilities to defend ourselves against missile launches, and I don't know how, like, no one knows exactly how effective they are because they've never really fully been tested in the real time. Remember a few years ago when Hawaiians got that alert?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be like that. Like, take cover. There's a fucking missile coming from North Korea, ballistic missile. And, like, that was, so there's things like that. Like, we have, like, run and take cover, and we have some abilities to intercept some of these missiles. But no, it's not something I personally have supreme confidence in because it's never been tested at, like, a wide scale thing. Like, people have thousands of nuclear warheads. Like, China's got a ton, Russia's got a ton, we have some, France has some, Israel, there's all sorts of countries have them. India, Pakistan. So if any of these countries decide it's like we're going to war and we're using nukes, then it's game over because you can't stop them all.
Jeez, man.
Scary.
No one could do this. Like, why is this even an option? Like, how are people dumb enough to think that, like, we could possibly, like, it's okay to do one of these?
The guy who I'm blanking on his name. Maybe it was like Robert Oppenheimer might be the guy, but he was in part of that Manhattan Project that developed the first one. And like once he's like, he's a scientist, they have this team, they're trying to come up with this nuke because they thought, Hitler was developing them too, which he was. And so they're like, we're going to have this project and we're going to like, it's a race to come up with nuclear bombs to see who can win the war. And then they did it. And then they were like, oh, fuck, like this is bad. Like the world will never be the same. And it hasn't been. Once you like split the atom. So they did it. And he's like, he called, it's like an old, I think it's like Hindu, where he's like, I am Vishnu, the destroyer of worlds. Like that's what I am now, because like I'm this god basically that created the one thing that could kill us all, and he did. I think that was Oppenheimer, but I could be wrong. I didn't look that up. That's just memory.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, this was full. This and part one were filled with, shit that's crazy, but. Mm-hmm. The fact that this guy...
I knew you'd love that story.
Dude, oh my God. Now, are we like secured now where this can't happen again?
What do you mean?
A false alarm incident?
Well, I mean, we just had the false alarm incident.
Yeah, with that.
The Hawaii, yeah. Like, we just had that. So, like, is that as serious as this? I don't know if anybody who's getting their cell phone alerts had a finger on the button to launch things back. And I think communication in general in 2020 is so much better.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a quick call to, like, Apple or something. Be like, hey, why did Hawaii get this? Oh, it's an accident? Okay, sorry.
Right.
That seems like way different than, hey, we got 28 minutes to react. 29
Those things
30.
are in the air on their way. Yeah, it's a much different ballgame.
So it's a way different false alarm. So like if there's a real false alarm, like I hope.
Yeah, and like I don't like things aren't great between us and China and us and Russia right now, but you would think it's not like they could just call back then. Like it was hard to make a phone call. Like you'd have to have translators, you'd have to have like Morse code perhaps, fax machines. Like this is 1983. Like the tech. There's no guarantee that you could get the president of the United States on the phone in 28 minutes, be like, hey, are you guys nuking us? And then hang up. Where today, I feel like you can.
And what's scary as well, I mean, I know this is like some of the most top secret, top guarded stuff in the world, but the more people that are well versed in tech, the more people that could maybe get access to some shit. And that's scary.
Okay, I never thought of that. I mean, could we cut this part? I don't want to give anybody any ideas. So yeah, that's fucking scary. Like if like dark web people figure out a way to hack into, hack into NORAD or whatever it is. I think that's probably the like you might not be able to launch a nuclear because they always see that thing like they have the nuclear codes and nuclear football, and somebody in the president's crew almost had the thing with you where it's like handcuffed to a briefcase, and like that's like a real thing. So it might be hard to initiate a first strike because of how all the process required to make sure that that doesn't happen by accident. But you might be able to like hack NORAD and do like the reverse of this Stanislav Petrov, where you make everyone think that nukes are coming. That seems like that is more plausible, and then we react accordingly. So,
unbelievable,
scary shit.
Very scary shit. Well,
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. If we don't see 2021, which with the way this year's gone. We
might have.
Here you go. Here's
which way do you want to die? Which one of the four?
Maybe Asteroid.
Asteroid's the way
Just
to go.
because I know my dinosaur brothers have went through it too, so I could be in arms with them.
Yep. I think that's good. I want to avoid nukes, so if it's the Yellowstone, just make sure I'm in, like, I want to be in the park. I want to be, like, petting a buffalo when it happens. Or, yeah, I'm with you with Asteroid.
Yeah.
Those are the two. Nukes, that clip about the radiation going through your body and, like, you just disintegrate slowly, I'm out on that.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, this is quite the two-parter, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that information. Shout out to Stanislav Petrov.
He should have like a statue in every country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The show's dedicated to him.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. All right, everybody. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with a Mall Santa. Look out for that interview. And, we'll see you then.